All right. I guess I'll do a little story time about when I thought my life was ruined. I'm not sure what I'm going to call this video yet. Um, I mean, I know a title that's going to get a ton of views. I just don't even like saying things like I was thinking about making the title "How I Ruined My Life," but I don't even like putting that out into the world, because I don't care what happened. Your life is never ruined. You know what I mean? You can always pull it back together. And this is coming from someone who uh, lost everything more than once. I was addicted to some heavy shit. And so I'll tell y'all the story about how I got addicted to dope. Now, I got to be careful what I say in the first minute because, all right, this video is going to have to, it can't be longer than 46 minutes, which that shouldn't be an issue anyway. So I got to clean my phone out. Um, that's one of the issues with YouTube. You got to keep erasing stuff so you can keep filming videos. Anyways, so I'll tell y'all how I ended up addicted to dope. Now, at this point, I'm already homeless. I'm already an adult. I've already turned down dope multiple times in my life because, and here's the other thing. The video I did about how it feels to OD, I actually told this story, but I'm going to tell it again because that video got demonetized and it was doing really good. And anyways, it's it's an interesting story. So, this is going to be the story of like when one of the times when I hit rock bottom, but what ended up happening was I was, you know, I ended up addicted to heroin well, because of a few things. But anyways, so at this point, I'm already homeless, and I had already survived a winter, at least one winter, out on the street, maybe two. I think it was my second winter out on the street. Must have been around 2014, 2000, maybe late 2013, early 2014. I'm pretty sure it was January because when you're homeless and you're street performing or doing some sort of street art, the one of the worst times of the year is January because December, yeah, it's cold, but in a place like New York City, there's a whole lot of money to be made in December in New York. It's a very hectic time, but all the street artists and street performers usually do pretty good in December. Then January ain't nobody doing good. It's dead. And it's gonna be dead until around April when it starts warming up. March 20th is the spring equinox. It'll start getting a little better, but you really don't, you're not making normal money again until around April. And that's a harsh truth to face when you're sitting there in January, February. Deep down, you're telling yourself, oh, maybe it'll be a early spring, or maybe February will not be as bad as January, but deep down, it's going to be rough. You don't even want to face that truth. You don't even want to think about it. But I'm talking about me personally. I knew, around January, February, I know it's like desert. It's like living in an Arctic desert where, I'm just trying to, at this point, I'm just trying to make enough money to like eat and stuff, you know? It, waking up with zero and knowing you gotta make enough money to eat. And when I was staying at the internet cafe, I had to also make money to stay at the internet cafe. And I gotta say, one of my favorite places to eat is the halal guys. Back then, you could get the chicken, beef, rice combo for I think it was $6, and it's such good food. If you're ever in New York City, there's a halal cart in Times Square. I think it's on 53rd. It's called the Halal Guys. They've got a restaurant up on 96th Street, and they've also got a restaurant in Miami. Before I leave Florida, I might just drive down to Miami to eat some halal guys because That's one place that was always there for me at my brokest. I mean, I'm talking back 2013, 14. $6 for not just a whole bunch of food. I'm talking a big full plate full of chicken, beef, rice, and then they put the white sauce and the hot sauce on it. For $6, it's like a Thanksgiving feast when you're broke. So that was like, but you can't eat it every day. But you could not eat better for $6 in New York City at this time. Um, but so I'm just mentioning that because that was one of the highlights of my life at this point when I could afford to go get the halal guys. And, I couldn't eat it every day, but it was the best food I could get. And so, if I had a decent enough day, I'd be in the internet cafe with my halal guys and I'd be real happy. But, anyways, so it was January, and I had no cigarettes, no money, no nothing, and it had just snowed, or it might have even been in the process of snowing. So I could go sit in the park and try to do portraits or jokes or whatever. Watch my previous videos if you want to know how I was making money on the street. But it was nothing. It was all. I always kept my self-respect. I wasn't robbing people. I wasn't, doing nothing foul. Uh, so I could go sit out in the park all day and make nothing. I knew I wouldn't make anything. If it's snowing out or if the park's dead, I just knew it would be a waste of my time. So what I was doing was just roaming the streets looking for, when you're broke and homeless and you ain't got no cigarettes, what a lot of homeless people do is they find, half smoked cigarettes on the street or whatever, and they just smoke that. Now, me, I didn't want to be putting my mouth on it and all that. I would break them up and roll my own cigarettes, which it was still this disgusting, mixed together, half dead cigarette. It's not good. But when you're addicted to cigarettes and you need a cigarette, it's better than nothing, barely. But so, anyways, I really just I needed a cigarette, and the other thing was, since the ground was all wet from the snow, I couldn't even do that. I couldn't even gather up the dead cigarettes to roll one. So I go into Starbucks and I use the free Wi-Fi and I email one of my best friends in New York who was addicted to heroin. And at this point in my life, I had actually done heroin once or twice just because it was there, and that's a story in and of itself. But to make it quick, my friend who was on heroin was a DJ in New York, and I was going to help him set up one night, and we had to stop so he could get his dope before we went there. And I was a little anxious. I hadn't been to a club in like a long time, and I was like, let me do a bump, see if it loosens me up. He's like, yeah, okay, here. And I did it, and we actually had a good night. And at that point, that it didn't even get me that wasted, and I really enjoyed. I had fun with it, and I didn't think much of it because it didn't even it didn't match up to what I thought it would be. It didn't get, I was I barely really felt anything. I just felt kind of good, although it did last for like 8 hours. But so, um, and if you've heard this story before, because I did tell it in the video where I explain how I OD'd, then feel free to not watch it again. But anyways, so it's the conditions are miserable. I have no money. I have no cigarettes. I have no nothing. I'm probably not going to eat today. So I go and I email my buddy. I'm like, yo, bro, let me come by and just bum a cigarette off you. My situation is fucked right now. I never asked nobody for nothing. And I just wanted a cigarette. And I knew he'd give me he didn't care about that. So he's like, what, you need a cigarette? I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude, just come over. He's like, I'll just get you a pack of cigarettes. I'm like, all right. So I go over there and he buys me food and gets me a pack of cigarettes, and I'm all of a sudden in a lot better mood. And he's sitting there doing, we never shot it, we were snorting it. And he's sitting there doing bumps. I'm like, yo, let me get a bump, fuck it. And I did a bump, and we just had a blast sitting there laughing and bullshitting, and showing each other bullshit on the internet and just cracking up and having fun. And this went on for like a week because the weather was so bad I couldn't really work for like the whole week. So for the whole week, he was supplying me with cigarettes and food, and just we just partied that whole week, and it was actually like a great time. And after that, I had this like positive association in my mind with heroin. So that was how I got addicted. After that week, the weather kind of went back to normal, and not normal. I mean, it was still cold and shitty, but at least I was able to go make my own money again and afford to eat and stay at the internet cafe again. I was still waking up with like $0 every day and spending everything I made that day, which is a high pressure situation. But at least I could, rely on myself again. But what happened was that spring, since I had this like positive association with the heroin in my head again, um, and I started making decent money again, and I'd have extra money. And you also got to realize another thing is everyone I knew was on heroin. It wasn't just my friend who was a DJ. It was a lot of my friends on the street in New York. So there'd be things happening where I'd be in the park doing my thing, and one of the people I know would come up and be like, "Yo, will you watch my bag while I run to do a shot at McDonald's?" He's like, "I'll give you a bag of dope just to watch." And I'm like, "Okay." And so normally I would have just been like, "Nah, I don't need a bag of dope. I'll watch your shit. I'm gonna be here anyway." But then once I was thinking, because I remember my friend, I'm not gonna say his name, but he asked me to watch his bag, and he was like, "Yo, watch my bag. I'll throw you a bag if you want." And he was talking about dope. And I'm like, all right, because I had this positive association. Like, we had a bunch of fun that whole week doing it. I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I'm making money again. Maybe after work today, I'll do a couple bumps and it'll be fun. And that's what I did. And it was fun. And after that, whenever I had extra money, which wasn't that often up until like summer when, money's getting good again. Spring, money's getting pretty good still. And all of a sudden, when I got extra money, and I'm looking forward to it all day, all of a sudden, I'm buying dope when I got an extra $10. And in New York City at this time, you could get really good dope for $10 a bag, which I think a bag of dope is a tenth of a gram. It's powerful stuff, and that would last me all day. I would just do little bumps here and there, and it would kind of just rev me up. But the more you do it, the higher your tolerance goes. The higher you want to get. In the beginning, I didn't even like doing big amounts of dope because I liked just to do a little bit and get a little revved up. Because if you do a little more than that, you're knocked out, and you're just like, and you're nodding out, and it just becomes you become like dysfunctional on it. You just sit there like a bump on a log, just staring at the floor. It doesn't even matter. It's what you're doing while you're on it doesn't matter. It's how you feel. It's almost like being in a dream. It's a weird thing. I suggest you never even fucking try it. Trust me on that. And here's another funny thing. People are always like, "Well, why would you still be friends with someone who got you on dope?" And really, we're not really friends anymore. I mean, I'm in Florida, he's in New York, and I don't really talk to him anymore. But it's not. I don't blame him for it because here's the thing: when you're on dope, and it hasn't really like ruined your life yet, you think it's a good thing, and you want to, like it, you just don't realize how bad it is until you get later on into it. But in the beginning, it's just the same as offering someone whatever you got. You're just trying to be friendly and share it. And it's like you want to share the experience, because at this point, it's a positive thing. It's going to turn negative soon, way sooner than you think. But in the beginning, this is how it spreads because a lot of people they don't realize how bad it's gonna get until it gets bad. So in the beginning with me, I never really offered it to many people because first of all, I wanted my own hope for myself, But the other thing was I also knew it's not a good thing, and but a lot of people don't really think like me. Another thing that used to shock me when I used to do dope is all the people around me, how they would do as much as they could handle without dying, and I was the opposite. I would do as little as possible because I didn't want to be all messed up. But that's what they want. They want to be just zonked out of their brain. But and I would think to myself like I don't want to end up addicted to this shit, so I'm gonna do as little as possible. It's like these thoughts never even cross these other people's minds. It's like they're thinking 5 minutes in front of their face. No one really thinks ahead. I used to think ahead quite a bit. Um, so they would just be doing like the maximum amount they could afford and the maximum amount they could do without ODing. And I was never like that. And I'd watch these people and I'd think to myself, that's a very sloppy mentality they have where it's as if there is no tomorrow. There's no next week. There's no next year. There's no future. There's just right now. Now, that's a positive way to think in a lot of ways, but in a lot of other ways, it's a negative way to think because they they basically use up every resource at their disposal as soon as they get it, and then the next day they wake up to a nightmare, and it's like they just never build anything. They squander everything the instant they get it. And as far as thinking, oh, I don't want to be addicted to this for the rest of my life, that I don't think it even crossed their minds. All they're thinking is, I want to get wasted right now and have fun, and that's it. That's as far as their thought process goes, which it always amazed me because I was never like that. And I'd see people, just building up these massive habits and thinking to myself, you know, they didn't have to do it that way. They could have been doing it the way I'm doing it and not even have a habit, which it took me a couple of months to get a habit. By the time summer hit, um, when I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be heading out to my spot, I'd be looking for the dealer in that area who I I knew him. It was a friend of mine actually for before I ever even touched dope. So I used to see him on the street all the time. But now the difference was I was actively looking for him because I wanted dope. So I'd uh, I'd run into him pretty much every day, uh, and I'd get it. And he even said to me that this is the dealer. He's like, bro, you're gonna build yourself a monster habit. He's like, I'm not your mother. You do what you want, but and I was like, no, I know what's happening. I was like, he's like, don't blame me, bro. Uh, and I wasn't blaming him at all. And in fact, I was even a little annoyed at him for bringing that to my attention when I'm in a good mood getting my dope. I'm like, I don't want to hear about this shit, bro. Like, I know what I'm not a child. Next thing I knew, I was fully addicted by by the time July hit that year. I was fully addicted. I couldn't function without it. Uh, I had to get it before I worked. Otherwise, I couldn't even work. I think I was doing the dollar jokes at this time. Um, and there was even times where I'd wake up without the money and I'd run into him on the street and I'd have to talk him into spotting me one and then coming into the park later after I get some work done so I can pay him for it. And it's like, now this is the life you live when you're on it. You're in this constant race against being dope sick where you got to just all my time, money, and resources was going to dope. I didn't even care. What mattered to me was getting my dope and getting high. um, One of the at the time my happiest moment was I'd get my dope, um, and I would head to the movie theater on Broadway, and I think 70th or 69th. You can look it up on Google Maps if you want. They do like movie premieres and stuff there, where there'll be like a red carpet out there and celebrities and stuff. A really nice movie theater. But that's where I would go to do my dope because they got a bathroom upstairs, which was always empty, so I could sit in there, snorting away and not worrying about it. And so I would just get my dope. I'd go to that movie theater, walk upstairs, and the front of that theater is like all windows facing Broadway. And I would go in that bathroom. I would do my dope, and it hits you fast. On my way back down the steps is when it would hit me with the sun shining in that window, and I'd be looking at the movie posters and the sun beaming in, and I'd be in the happiest state of mind I had been in years. And that was, that was all that mattered to me for a little while until what ended up happening was it became, your habit grows, and the next thing you know, it ain't, one bag ain't gonna do it for you. One bag is not even gonna get you to feeling normal. It's gonna take three or four now. Uh, in the beginning, when I was doing dope, I'd go into that bathroom, I'd put a little bump on my hand, and I'd do it. I'd leave the bathroom, I'd be high, I'd have a great time. As time went on, it became two bumps. Next thing you know, it's the whole bag all at once. Next thing you know, it's one bag in one nostril, one bag in the other. Next thing you know, it's two in here, and that's pretty much as I could ever afford, because once it got to that point, I couldn't afford to drop $40 a day on it, and then you know I just couldn't afford it. I could maintain that for maybe a week or two, but sooner or later, I'd have a day where I didn't make enough or whatever, and I'd be dope sick, and I'd get to the point where I'd be like, okay, I've got to quit now, and then I would quit, and I'd think to myself, well, now all I need is $10, and I'd go right back at it. And I went through that cycle, I don't know how many times, up until around 2017. And I've told the story in previous videos how I ended up quitting. But that's the story of when I was at rock bottom and couldn't, you know, ended up on dope. Um, Basically, on accident, kind of. Um, I had done dope maybe a couple of times before that when we hung out all week and did it, and I just didn't think a whole lot of it. wasn't even a real big fan of it. Just didn't think much of it. Um, but after that week of doing it the whole week, it became this really positive thing in my mind. And then after that rough ass winter and that rough ass spring and having extra money and just wanting to feel good, and the next thing I know, I ended up messing with dope and Suboxone, and you know bouncing between the two of them, and ended it. 2019 was when I ended up getting off it. So it was 6 or 7 years where my life revolved around opiates. And I got to say to anyone who's struggling with it, it may seem impossible to get off it, but I can tell you from experience, it is not impossible. I kicked dope homeless multiple times. Um, Whatever circumstances you're in. I need to make a video and explain exactly how I would deal with kicking dope. But so, um, yeah, maybe that'll be the next video, and I'll tell y'all exactly what I would do to make it easier on myself, because this is something I ended up doing a few times. A few, I don't know how many times I kicked dope cold turkey and then went back on it, then discovered other methods to make it even easier. I'll do that in the next video. Um, but I can tell you one thing: once you're off it, it took me about a year to get over it, to where I didn't miss it anymore and I didn't care about it, which is something I never even expected to experience. I thought I would just be missing it for the rest of my life. But about a year later, I realized I don't even care about it anymore. Uh, it had like a spell on me that was just broken very suddenly one day. I just realized I don't care about dope no more. I could tell you the exact moment, and I hate to tell the same story, over and over. I've told this one before too, but I was walking down 71st Street on my way to do my portraits. As I'm walking down 71st Street, it hits me. I realize that you haven't even thought about heroin in about a year, maybe more. It's it's just not a part of your life anymore, and so I was shocked by that, and I realized I'm free of this, and it took about a year. So I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak from my own experience, but I think if you stay off it for about a year, you should be in the clear. And after that, I haven't cared about it since. I'm telling you, you could sit there right in front of me, and I've turned it down for free since then. I've had people I know pop up in the park who I hadn't seen in years, and they sell dope, and they're sitting across from me, and I know all I got to do is, yo, bro, let me get a bag off you, and he's gonna give it to me. He ain't even gonna charge me for it because I ain't seen him in years. So I knew it, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about it. Now, this was maybe like a year or two, maybe 2 years after being off the subs. I'm sitting there in the park, and it crossed my mind. I'm like, I know all I got to do is he ain't even gonna charge me for it, and I had money at the time anyway. But I knew it was right there for me for free if I wanted it, and I didn't take it. And that was when I really knew it's done. It's a wrap. That was like the nail in the coffin. And I do honestly believe that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, was testing me right then and there. Because not long after that, the whole world changed. The whole COVID thing happened. Next thing I know, I'm living in Florida, and the whole world changed. And I do believe the universe was testing me right there, and I passed the test. And it was like, okay, here's the next phase. And I do believe this is how life works. You got to evolve past the things that are holding you back, and once you do, everything changes. And it's an ongoing process. You got to listen to your conscience. What's your gut telling you? 9 times, 10 times out of 10, your gut is telling you exactly what you got to do to get exactly where you got to be. You just got to learn to trust your instincts, trust your gut, listen to it, do what it tells you to do, whatever responsibilities it's telling you, you got to get on this, and you know it. So hopefully this makes sense. But anyways, that's today's video. So the next video I make might be a little shorter. I'll just explain to y'all the exact process I would go through when I had to kick dope. And um, hopefully it'll help some of y'all out because it's a doable thing. I've done it so many times that, you know, I never liked doing it. Don't get me wrong. I hated doing it. But you see in the movies like Train Spotting and Basketball Diaries, he's offering to give this guy head for dope. I ain't never been that desperate for it. I promise you that. I've never. I would. I'll put it to you this way. I'd never even beg. I'd rather go kick the shit. I'm not even gonna. Please let me. Fuck no. I got too much pride for that. I'll just go kick the shit, and I'll come back tomorrow, or I'll come back in 6 days when it's only gonna cost me like $10. You know what I mean? I ain't begging nobody for shit, bro. Anyways, so I guess that's the end of this video. I appreciate every single one of you. Appreciate all the new subs. Appreciate the tips, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. Uh, what do they call it when they give you a tip on YouTube? A super chat. I appreciate that. Appreciate the Patreons. I got to go do my Patreon video right now. I did it yesterday, but I got to redo it. I'll go over it on Patreon. Anyways, appreciate every single one of you. Uh, if you want any response to the comments, try to get in early because I usually respond to the first 30 or so. Unless it's something that's just super annoying or rude for no reason, I try not to respond to those. But feel free to say them anyway. Think I am going to read the first 30, 40, 50 or so, and then I'll continue to read them throughout the days. But the ones I definitely see are the early ones. Anyways, appreciate every single one of these, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, you know what? It's 29 minutes and 5 seconds. I'd like to drag it out another minute and make it an even 30. So let's see. So the reason the Patreon video I've got to redo it is because I had to buy more hotspot for this. They really screw you, dude. So watch my last video if you want free hotspot because I fuck these phone companies. They had me yelling at them yesterday. I need to make a video about that too. You can't let this ridiculous society and all these annoying motherfuckers when you act out and you act stupid, you're only hurting yourself, So it may feel good, but I'm embarrassed and ashamed of it. I'll tell the story in an upcoming video where I'm screaming at the phone people. Anyways, all right, that's 30 minutes. Appreciate every single one of you. See you on the next one.